feel like this topic is empowering. So we're coming at you live, season 6. So happy that we are continuing to pull this train out of the station, and to come up with, I think, more intention-based topics to highlight the work that we're kind of actually doing within our lives, but also that we hear other people on the daily just kind of struggling with. We've got a nice little lineup coming at you for season 6. So if you haven't listened in before, if you're kind of curious, now's a good time to tune in.
Yeah, more of the same, but still talking mental health, mental wellness. We kind of cover it all, but we circle back, like, you know, trying to be the best version of ourselves at the end of the day. So part of that is really starting to say no to things, which is so hard if you're like us and you're kind of like a people pleaser.
hmm Well, that, and then I think that some of it too is just like expectations. Like, shouldn't we be doing all the things? Shouldn't we be the person that shows up at every social event or social function, even if our own battery is drained? It's like there's that internal drive to please other people, but also like the outside societal pressure, maybe that we feel like we should. And it just leaves us chasing our tails so much, I feel like.
Yeah. And well, I mean, hit the nail on the head, like doing it for other people versus like what we do for ourselves. Not to say that we shouldn't always do things just for ourselves, but to really be intentional on what you're doing for others.
Mm.
So I got a great example of this. I recently had this really amazing opportunity to go back to school, like fully covered, coursework that I would do in a program like that is pretty aligned with the day in, day out kind of work that I do. So it all just kind of like made sense, right? And I was like, I think
Mm.
I'm gonna do this. Like, this is a great opportunity. Yes, like talk to my family. My husband's like, do you? My kids are like, yeah. They're like unsure because they don't really understand. But they're like, "Yeah, mom, that's cool." And then I really started to think about how much like sacrifice comes with that. And I just like
Mhm.
times and how it's so apparent to me how quickly it's going by.
Mm.
These are the golden years, and so I want to be present to the best of my ability. So anyway, ultimately have decided it's a no. And I need to tell the people, right, that are over this program and let them know.
So, what's the pause in telling them about it?
Just finding the right time. Like this is it's that's the hardest part for me in like any relationship. I feel like I'll wait till there's like the right time, the right moment. And sometimes that happens and sometimes that doesn't. And that's bit me in the ass.
And sometimes just practicing even saying something like that out loud, even if it's not specifically to the person that needs to hear it, having the practice go of saying it to your family, I think is a great first step, especially when we're used to being just yes people all of the time. To any opportunity that comes up, it's almost sometimes like an impulsive response or decision that comes up. And we don't even check with others. Like, we don't even check in, like, well, we might have this going on. We might have another child has that happening, or we already committed to something else, or our husband already said something to us. And then we're already saying yes. And then we're stuck. And so practicing it in those safe situations with safe people, I think, is a great first start before going to the actual person to approach the situation. Because there's some level of like, I don't know, I think we don't want to necessarily disappoint other people. We don't want to feel like we're letting them down in whatever way. We don't want to put more on their shoulder. But then on top of that, it's like, what if one day I need a return favor and now I can't get it because I've turned them down? I mean, that's got to be a piece of things sometimes too, right?
Well, you
Mhm.
don't want to like regret. I think that's always like the biggest thing. It's like, well, what will I regret the opposite? But ultimately, you have to decide what aligns with your goals.
And I think one way to kind of reframe this in some ways is that whenever we say no to doing something, what we are also doing is protecting our yes. So we are protecting our yes to another opportunity that we don't even know may be coming up on our door. But because we've taken a step back and recognized that we're not all in, then that then gives you the freedom and the opportunity to embrace something that's more meant or aligned for you later. Sometimes saying no is actually the way to protect your yes. And so I would think of that as a more positive kind of reframe in that regard.
Yeah, it opens the opportunity for something else to happen, right? So that's a potential yes. One door closes, another opens, like some of those old corny sayings, they've stuck around for a reason.
So, if you are a person that struggles with saying no, we have a few tips that we just kind of want to run down and maybe some scenarios that might help out with this because again, I think as we're moving through this like stage in life, we want to be more independent and not necessarily relying so much on everything else for our own feelings of worth or direction. And while at the same time, keeping in mind that we don't want to be overextending ourselves or unintentionally overextending our kids by getting them overcommitted into a bunch of different activities, and I think we fall into that trap a lot of times as parents too.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
You're just
You
like,
can't do it all. And then you do end up doing way more than you ever committed to something and you get to it and you're like, "What was I thinking?" You're just
100%.
mad at yourself and, trying to, I don't know, trying to do less of that. And then you have things to actually look forward to instead of it just
Right.
being a rat race. Like, the things that I've committed to, I'm actually very excited about,
Mhm.
versus like, "Well, we have to do this. We have to do this."
So what brings us kind of back to some of this stuff is if you notice that you've been asked a question to do something, whether it's for yourself, a social event, your kids, or anything else, the first thing I would do is just kind of pause and notice how your body responds to it. Your body will respond before your mind has a chance to kind of catch up to it and listen to the signal that it's sending. Because you might start to feel like a little bit of tightness within your chest. You might like take like a deep breath, or you might feel like a big push just to kind of jump in. But that's where just take a moment when being asked to do something that involves a level of commitment and just see how your body responds because it's going to tell you immediately if that's going to be a good yes or a no. And so sit back and pause with that one for a minute before diving in. And by doing that, it gives us a minute to not be impulsive, especially if we are a yes person that just kind of goes in and says, "Yeah, I think we might be able to do that." By taking that moment to kind of do that self body scan to see what message that is giving to us, then we're then able to use something like a pause phrase. Have you ever heard of that before or kind of used them? So basically, it's a way that we can, just like it says, push pause on the conversation so that way we can come back and explore it later.
This is something I really have to practice. Like, I laugh when you're like, "Just take a beat," impulse control. Like, that is so hard for me. I respond, right? Instantly respond. Don't think. It just comes out, no filter. And so sometimes that's like something that I really have to practice.
Yeah, it's so hard because it's so easy just to get into that rhythm and just to go ahead and say, well, I can manage it, or that's what our previous history about ourselves is. Yeah, I think we'll be able to make something work. Making something work generally doesn't make something work for you. It makes stress happen in your life. It makes it much tougher. And so my pause phrase that I tend to use is that maybe I'd like to, but I have to look at my planner. I have to look at my calendar. I cannot commit to anything without looking at that first. And then and I'll just leave it at that.
It's a great pro
And then it's my job then, you know what I mean, to go back and say, "You know what? I already have something on that date, sorry." But then maybe commit to trying to do something later. I may not be able to do this now, but I'm open to doing something in the future. So that's a yes, no response. You can go ahead and say no, but yes to something in the future, but allowing that to be non-specific as well. So again, you're allowing yourself to have some wiggle room in there. So, no, I'm not able to do it this weekend, but thank you for thinking of me, of us. We're really interested in maybe exploring that later on down the road whenever more time frees up. So, again, y use a
no,
pause
yes.
phrase. Yeah, yeah, use a pause phrase and
Check
follow
back.
up maybe with a no, yes.
Unless you do really just want to get together, then you give them specific days and times. I like that.
And I think sometimes we feel almost, obligated, and I don't like that word either, to provide more information as to why we can't do something. That's not necessary. You know what I mean? We don't need to be given a TED Talk on why we're not
Another
able to engage.
also hard for us with ADHD. We often feel the need to over explain ourselves. It's just not necessary, right? Like
Right.
less is more. Also, something I have to practice.
It's using micro no's. So these are just opportunities to practice saying no. And even whenever I was working and seeing patients, we would practice micro statements a lot or micro actions in order to build confidence and a person's ease whenever confronted with social situations, especially. And so, like a micro conversation might be whenever you're at a, I don't know, checking out at a store and they want to know if you want to sign up for the credit card or biggie size the meal, those are micro no's. You might already be saying those, but are unaware of the fact that you are. So recognize that as times in which you have said no. It doesn't sometimes matter what you've said no to. It's the reflection that you have said no to something that then builds that muscle. So that way you can really start to flex it in situations where it's required more.
Such a great point because again, that's something that's hard, right? In the moment, you have a really hard time saying no. And then, like, sometimes you'll be like, "Ugh, why did I do that? Why did I spend $25 on popcorn outside of Walmart towards the Boy Scouts?" You're like, well, it's the Boy Scouts. I don't know. It's just like stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's really hard to say no if you're impulsive, and so I love the idea of practicing that, I hate to say it, but, like, when they're like, "Do you wanna round up?" Like, "Hell yes, I'm always gonna say yes." But if that's something you're trying to practice is saying no, those are great opportunities that naturally come up in our environment, and I love that idea to practice, so great idea. Maybe I should start
Yeah.
doing it more.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I've actually had to have conversations like with our youngest, especially because she's with me all the time and we're always going out and doing stuff. She'll ask, why am I not rounding up or why am I not donating to it? And that gives me again an opportunity to say, well, this is practicing saying no. Sometimes we don't have to say yes to anything. And although these are great or charitable causes, we donate a lot of things to our local animal shelter and we have a lot of fun going down there and taking dog bones or we do
Yeah.
this. So, yeah, yeah. So we're not saying, no, this isn't something that's important. We're saying, yes, that we have other things that we contribute to.
Yeah, or in different ways, right? I try to actually, I was just thinking one thing that usually helps is was always with my mom, and she kinda had these scripts that she would say, like, "No, not today." Not saying not ever, but not going to do it today. So, like, "No, not today." Or, if she didn't have cash, she'd be like, "I don't have cash on me right now," if it was like Salvation Army or something like that. But usually, like, just having a script, oh, a good way to say no. Like you said, that's sort of like, "I need to check my calendar."
Yeah, I love that. No, not today. Yeah. I mean, you're putting it on pause.
"You wanna buy
Right.
popcorn today?" "Not today, give me next time."
Saying no is such an important skill. And I think we've almost criminalized it, or villainized it. Like, oh, you're not being nice, you're being mean if you say it. Or, I don't know where those kind of ideas have come from.
So what we keep preaching is that intentionality of, like, "This is how I wanna spend my time," and yes, that requires me saying no and potentially hurting someone's
Mhm.
feelings or letting someone down.
I think it's harder though whenever it comes to kids. I think that's where, we feel like we're being mean if we're saying no. I don't know if your parents my parents didn't say this. You have to give an explanation instead of just saying, because I said so, because you're not this, that, and the other,
Right. What's funny is it's not funny, I guess, but, like, how we teach kids these same types of emotional, like, regulation or behavioral. These are the types of interventions we do with kids in schools. And so
Mhm.
it's the same thing, like teaching them to pause before they react. The adults could benefit from a lot of the same strategies.
I just think that we live underneath the illusion that we've grown up and don't need to do those things anymore. And the truth is that we're all still just children. Just we're all still developing. We're not done baking yet. The only time when development stops is when we're dead. Just to throw that out there.
Unless it's working out for you. Like if everything's great and you're not burned out and frazzled and overcommitting yourself, then whatever you're doing is working. But if it's
Right.
not, here's some tips on how you're hopefully, on how you can build that muscle of like saying no and really prioritizing your peace.
I agree with that 100%. What is your goal, and are your current behaviors, choices, whatever, aligning with that goal? And if not, that's where you, again, take a moment back and see, is it my behaviors or do I need to change the goal? Like what needs to happen here in order to kind of make this stuff all work?
It's the new year. By the time this comes out, it'll be 2026, and we'll all be setting goals and thinking about how we're going to hopefully reach them.
Mhm.
Like, if I can get specific on the goals, it will help me define what the no's will be, right? Because
Mhm.
which you have to make time for. What are those mandatory yeses? So it helps me sort of like streamline once I figured out exactly what the goals will be.
Definitely. Definitely. I like the way you put that streamline. It streamlines the yeses and the opportunities whenever you have something that you're always kind of moving or working towards. It's called a practice, not perfection. That's what always you always remember. Everything's a practice.
Well, happy New Year. Welcome back, season 6. Sure you check us out on social media, Lila's Podcast. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter,
Mhm.
TikTok,
Mhm.
you name it, YouTube. Wherever you get your social media, you can find us there, or you can go to our website, lilaspodcast.com. We will see you next week. Until then, y'all, Lilas.